Napoleon. First, we'll see over here what were the causes. That supremacy or the naval supremacy of Britain was always greater than the France. So naval weakness was one of the inherent weakness. Second thing, his continental policy or system failed because Britain even survived the blockade. You remember when you will be studying modern India, you will see that all the manufactured products created by Britain, when it did not got the market there, they were sold forcefully into India with a lot of taxation. So the British, they could sustain their 7 years of war because of that, right? But it was very hard for France. Also, we see that national revolts in Spain, Italy, and other occupied territories had come up. Let's very quickly see about them. What happened? That Spain revolted against the Napoleon's brother, first of all. Prussia strengthened herself for further liberation. Now, what is the biggest blunder Napoleon did when Tsar Alexander of Russia, he did not comply with the continental system and broke it with Napoleon. What did Napoleon do? In such winters, he marched inside Russia. And can you imagine that if you are going into Russia and Serbia with a huge army, can you take them in winters or by this power? Never, never. This was the mistake. Operation Barbarossa, we'll see, which was again done by Germans in around 1939, after the Second World War scenario. During the time of Second World War scenario, we'll see. What do? Even like Napoleon, they march inside the territory of Russia, right? But still, the soldiers themselves, half of them will die because of the very cold, extreme weather. Napoleon, the man of destiny, invaded Russia. Made no sense. Another blunder. With an army of 500,000, but he escaped a few months later only with 1,000 survivors. Now, Napoleon's army knew he would be defeated, right? So what happened? A coalition was organized and Napoleon was collectively defeated at Leipzig in 1830. Next year, he was compelled to surrender at Paris and retired to the island of Elba. Okay, but what happened? Again in the spring, he tried to return and rule as an emperor for 100 days. But before that, what happens? That a battle of Waterloo is fought with a combined forces of British and Prussia on one side and French or Napoleon on other side. The French army invaded Belgium to defeat a combined forces of Britain and Prussia. The French were badly defeated by the British under the commander of Duke of Wellington, Arthur Wellesley, right? With the Prussian support at Waterloo. And the battle had permanently ended the Napoleon's threat into Europe. After their crushing defeat at the Battle of Waterloo, the French dream of becoming dominant power was totally over, and Napoleon once again abdicated. It is said that after a humiliating defeat, he did abdicate the throne of France, but he was exiled to a remote island of St. Helena, where it is said that after a few years he died. And what happened? A Congress at Vienna, right? This is important in our world history, that a Congress in Vienna, it had decided to restore the monarchy in France, and Louis XVII was again raised as the king. We'll see what is Congress of Vienna. However, the monarchy was ousted again in 1830 and re-emerged to exist in 1848. Now, this is not very important for your exam relevance because it is not your optional class. Had you been an optional history student? Yes. But all these political turmoils are not important. I've already mentioned causes, consequences, and events. Right. After a brief return, finally, in 1871, the France became a republic. Now, what happened here that in the Vienna Congress, right, we see it was Austria, Prussia, Britain, and France which concluded a special alliance with the Treaty of Chaumont to prevent the Napoleon threat. Right, it was in 1815. Battle of Waterloo again was in 1815 and 8. Now understand that there were three goals of Metternich, right? First was to prevent any kind of future French aggression. Second was to restore the balance of power in Europe. And third one was to restore the European royal families to the throne. Now, this was not actually very much required because it was more of a political information. What is important is, let's see what are the positives and the negative. First of all, it weakened the European colonial powers like the Spain and the Portugal, as their colonies had declared the independence. Abolition of slavery we have seen. We have seen destruction of feudalism in France. We have seen introduction of universal male suffrage, right? We have seen Napoleonic code, or you can say the civil law, right? We have seen that it took or it inspired other anti-colonial movements. Negatives, there was a limited success only, right? Only the objectives of revolutionaries were fulfilled. It led to decline in economic activities. It failed to bring stable immediate democracy, and under Napoleon, extreme nationalism backfired or alienated the people. Spread of policy of hate and social alienation within the France, because so many multiple times what was happening that there was change of scenarios happening in the formation of the constitution. It went from monarchy to constitutional monarchy to a republic, right? And then when it went to a directory, it became a dictatorial power of government. And then again, it went back and forth, right? So this was the question they have asked in previous year. Explain how the foundations of modern world were laid by French and American Revolution, and this was asked in 2019. So American Revolution, okay, this had basically inspired your French Revolution. If we discuss that, we see over here that first, the concept of popular sovereignty and democracy. What was this? Popular sovereignty was the consent or the general consent of the governed, right? Or you are talking about the citizens, right? This American Revolution, it asserted that government derives the legitimacy from the consent of the governed, and it inspired republicanism. French Revolution, it abolished the monarchy and principle of sovereignty, popular sovereignty was upheld, right? It led as a or set as an example for upcoming of the modern democracies. Now we also see liberty, equality and rights. So in American Declaration of Independence, right, and this we saw that it talked about the rights of the man and the citizen and emphasized on the natural right. Who was there who talked about this? It was John Locke, right? Who talked about the concept of popular sovereignty? It was Rousseau. And these values influence the later charters like the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights, right? Apart from this,